There's a new book that takes a look at Prince's life from years of interviews with people from the singer's inner circle.
It's called Nothing Compares to You, an oral history of Prince. Toure is the author. He's a longtime music journalist for Rolling Stone, The New Yorker, The New York Times. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, here's the question I want to ask that is certainly not first and foremost, but not only is this guy an amazing musician, but he's a pretty good basketball player too. Usually those things, there isn't enough time in the day to do both of those things really well. How did that happen?
He grew up playing basketball. I mean, his teenage years were all about learning music and mastering all the instruments he could and learning to produce and all those sort of things. But they definitely made time to go play basketball. And even though he was short, he was always good. And sometimes they would hustle people, like go to a court where they didn't know anybody and be like, yeah, we'll play you for a couple dollars or whatever. And because Prince was short, they were always like, oh, well, this will be easy money. But he was always good. He played on the high school team. And his brother was good. That helped out a little bit. And like, I saw how good he was. I played one-on-one with him at Paisley Park.
Wow.
And he was good. He could move with the ball. He could move without the ball. He could dribble. He could shoot. The way his body looked when he shot, he kind of looked like Steph Curry in terms of the way that he shot the ball. Like, I'm not saying he was that good. I'm saying like that's the athletic form that he had. So he was an athlete.
Good.
Well, he's known for his work ethic, and you know, I didn't realize that so many of his songs were inspired by his childhood and the traumas from his childhood. Talk a little bit about that and what you learned talking to all these people who maybe never spoke before.
A lot of people who never really spoken that much before. The book is filled with conversations with people who are musicians, girlfriends, engineers, managers. You know, I mean, like he grew up a Seventh-day Adventist. And if you know anything about that faith, the whole thing is that the apocalypse is around the corner. So when he's making all these songs like Let's Go Crazy in 1999, where he's talking about the apocalypse, in the 80s, we thought that he was referring to the Cold War, which we all thought the world's about to end because of the Cold War. No, he was talking about his Seventh-day Adventist faith, or the teachings that he got, where they were constantly like, the world is about to end. So that's sort of what he's talking about. But this is a guy who was just all about music from his earliest teens. I mean, like, he was from his earliest days, but like Morris Day talked to me about being like 14. Morris lived around the corner from Prince. And Prince is knocking on his door at 3 in the morning because Morris had a 4-track recorder so they could make songs. Prince did not yet have that equipment. So he's banging on the door saying, like, let me in. I need to record a song I just thought of.
Now, he had an amazing influence, at least genetically, from his parents who were both in the business. A troubled relationship. Why did he forgive his dad but not his mother?
The short answer is sexism. I mean, like, look, he was mad at his mother, but his mother let him leave to go live with his father because he wanted to, because she had moved on in terms of having a relationship with his stepfather. But she continued to care about him and to call and check up on him. He goes to live with his dad, and his dad, after a few months, says, you know, you're bringing girls in the house. I told you not to do that. Like, get out. So his dad kicks him out. His mom says, you are allowed to leave to go to your dad. His dad says, get out. I don't care where you go. And he's semi-homeless for a little while. And then he ends up living with Bernadette Anderson, who loves him and takes care of him the rest of his teenage years. But his dad kicked him out. And yet, you know, he loved his dad. He welcomed his dad back into his life when he's a superstar in his 20s. He continued to want his dad's attention and affection and respect. His mom, he never really forgave. And, you know, people are like, he bought her a house, but he did it through like clenched teeth, not wanting to do that. And so, you know, I mean, like, I think it just boils down to sexism ultimately.
Interesting.
Now, we've heard that, you know, he did not leave a will, and there's been all this battle about his estate. Is there a lot of unreleased music that we might eventually hear?
Oh my God, there's tons of unreleased music. This is a man who went to the studio every single day and finished a song. Not just started, but finished. So if there's 365 days in a year, he made about 360 songs. You know, maybe he took a couple days off here and there, but he made tons of songs and would, even though he's releasing an album a year for about a decade, he threw a lot of stuff in the vault. Susan Rogers, one of his core engineers during the 80s, told me a lot of that stuff is really good. We've heard some of that stuff over the years since he passed, but I imagine we will continue to get new Prince music for years to come.
Real quick, what did he think of Michael Jackson? Were they just competitors, friends, colleagues?
Definitely competitors. I mean, Prince didn't have a lot of friends. He liked to play music, and that was it. Everything else was a competition to him, and he was definitely competitive. I have heard stories about him going to Michael Jackson's house and playing ping pong with Michael Jackson and coming back and saying, like, Michael's not very good at ping pong. And Prince apparently was extremely good at ping pong. People are like, he could have gone professional in ping pong. Yeah, extremely good at table tennis. He definitely saw Michael Jackson as a huge competitor.
Wow, it's just fascinating. So many tidbits that you have not heard before. For more, you can follow Toure on Instagram or on Toure.com or the podcast, Who is Prince? Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.